Hey friends, Jill here and welcome back to Whispering Willow Farm. This video has been long awaited, patiently awaited from all of you guys, and I cannot wait to share it with you guys today. I'm giving you a little bit of a farm update and a garden tour of all of our new spaces. While I would love to show you the old spaces, we have had so many crazy storms, so I'm actually not going to be walking through the raised bed garden and the cottage garden because it is literally calf deep in mud and it's saturated. So not much has changed there. We did a update with you guys on our plans for that space. Our plans still remain the same for that space. We have from the pavilion over that we are utilizing and planting, and then from the left side of the pavilion we are going to be turning that into pasture hopefully this fall. So we'll keep the pavilion the right side over, grow dahlias, keep our cottage garden, but not much has changed in that area. Right now we're just kind of maintaining. However, the back part of our farm has went through quite the transformation this year, as well as myself. We have just been transitioning together and it's been so much fun. So I had some lofty goals, some big ambitions this year. I wanted to add in new growing spaces. We wanted to expand our cut flower business. And with that came a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Creating spaces from scratch is certainly no joke. But I'm glad we kind of dug our heels in and decided, you know what, we're just going to go for it, and we did. And I cannot wait to share those new spaces with you guys today. So come on, let's go take a look. So I'm going to be talking and showing, and also I'm going to be having a lot of videos that I overlay on this. Now I do want to start by saying, you know, this whole backyard was just that. It was a backyard when we bought our property around 3 years ago. And because we are on such a small scale, we've really had to utilize and maximize every bit of space we had, which means if it was a backyard, it had the opportunity to be productive and to turn profit. So that's what we did. We do still have a portion of our backyard with a trampoline, a swing set. We've got our grill. You know, we have a little area that's for the family, but the whole front yard's unutilized. So the kids have plenty of room to play. So we knew we wanted to take this space and really do something with it. And so the original plan was to have this be our entire sunflower field. We were going to be growing around 500 sunnies every single week. Sunflowers are one of those flowers we grow. We grow the Pro Cut Orange Excel. I'll show you guys in a minute. Very profitable flower for us. And so we build these out in these grids. So you'll notice here there's this grid and there's like just this whole grid of dirt. That works great for sunflowers. We're not trellising them, we're not netting. We need just very, very small walkway to go through and harvest. But then I quickly realized that I was gonna have to utilize some of this space for filler flowers because the original space I had dedicated to filler flowers needed to be used for dahlias. So had I set out with the intention for this front space to be filler flowers, I would have done it differently. So as I'm walking through and showing you, just know this isn't the style I would recommend. I would not do a big grid of dirt. We would do walkways, probably bigger walkways. It would look a little bit different, but we'd already created the space and then kind of had to change plans, which if you're a gardener at all, you understand that's kind of part of it. So back here we've got celosias, basils, and our zinnias. So I'm going to share with you guys real quick what varieties we're growing. They look absolutely stunning. So right here I have the terracotta variety. I bought these from Johnny's Seeds. I have been very, very impressed. I've grown celosia in the past, but what I've been the most impressed with is the stem length on these. And so that's been great. Usually I go in and I will prune or deadhead all of my filler flowers. So basil, celosia, zinnias. I'll do this with cosmos, dahlias, most of our flowers. And I'm deadheading them pretty young. And when you do that, it actually encourages longer stems, bushier plants, more productive plants. But with the celosia, time got away from me and I wasn't able to do that. So the fact that they're looking so great, so lush is more than ideal These are beautiful. I have these on a 9x9 inch spacing. We've got the Hortanova netting, which I recommend. It helps especially just to encourage straighter stems, which is ideal for bouquet making. And then where we have these in our backyard, we get a lot of straight line winds. And so this is really just to ensure they're not getting knocked over, broken, things of that nature. But been very, very impressed. We're just now starting to harvest off of these. So they will just continue to be spikier. Right now we're still pretty in that beginning stages, so we're not quite there yet, but we'll get there. So behind me we have a rose gold celosia. This is a floret original, so if you guys are flower growers at all, I'm sure you already know who Erin Benzacane from Floret Farms is. If not, you should go follow her. But I bought a lot of her floret originals this year, which was a part of a breeding program. She bred all of these, which is just so cool to me. And so this is beautiful. While we, again, are not at that place yet where they're really starting to put off, you can just see here with the foliage, beautiful, putting off lots of side shoots, which is great when I think about really being able to fill out a bouquet on an arrangement. I've been pleasantly surprised just with the foliage on here. It's stunning. I can't wait to see it in full bloom. We probably still have a few more weeks left until these are really at that age of maturity. But again, rose gold celosia, looking pretty good. And then behind that, we have got another floret original called Spun Sugar. And it looks like it's gonna be a fun one. I really just wanted to kind of do the first garden tour, if you will, and show you guys what they look like now versus what they look like at maturity. Just like vegetables, you know, they vastly change from when you first plant the seed until you're harvesting the fruit. I feel like flowers are so gratifying to watch grow because the transformation that takes place is truly, truly breathtaking. So I cannot wait. The goal is to hopefully do a garden tour with the flowers specifically, at least once a month, keep you guys updated. So we have a little bit bigger grid here just because we wanted to be able to plant them all out together. So we just kind of combined, made this row a little bit bigger. So now let's move into our basil. I'm only growing one variety of basil. This is a variety that is grown as a cut flower instead of for its culinary properties. While it is totally still edible and you can still use it for the culinary purposes, it just does really well. It throws off these really beautiful purple spikes, which happen to make an arrangement look stunning. This is called the Aramato variety. I might be butchering how you say that, but it's really great as a cut flower. I buy the seeds from Johnny Seeds. I've grown this particular variety for a couple years now and been really impressed. So if it's not broke, don't fix it. And so that's the basil that we're growing as well. So I will mention, while I do want these basils to throw those flower spikes, because that's what's kind of adding, you know, texture to a bouquet, basil can go to seed really quickly. So there's kind of that sweet spot for me. So I will go through, and I really recommend, whether you're growing basil for cut flower or just for the culinary purposes or medicinal purposes, if you're growing Tulsi, things like that, go in and prune regularly. It's going to encourage your plant to keep growing laterally, so it's going to stay bushier, more compact. You're not going to need as much support and trellising, and it's just really great for the production of your plant. You need to tell your plant to keep producing, or it's going to just go vertically, turn to seed, and then it's kind of done. So I don't want that, even with my cut flowers. So I'll go through tomorrow, which is actually the day that you're watching this video, and I will harvest a bunch of these. Even though it might not be the ideal stage to harvest for a bouquet, it will be better for the longevity and the life of my plant in the long run. So that's my plan for that. But now let's move on to the zinnias. So you guys can see behind me, we have our zinnias. I'm going to walk through the varieties with you guys. This will be our only zinnia patch though, which means much like our sunflowers, we're going to have to do multiple successions to ensure that we have enough now through the fall. So I absolutely love growing zinnias. They are a fantastic cut and come again, even if you're not a flower farmer. or a flower gardener, they're great to put in the little pockets or the ends of your vegetable beds to attract pollinators. They are great for attracting beneficial pollinators like butterflies and bees and things like that. And they're also just really, really pretty. So I always tell people, even if you don't think you want to grow flowers, grow some zinnias. They'll change your mind. All right, so behind me, let's start with a new variety to me. This is also another Floret original. She did a lot of filler flowers, so zinnias, celosia, those were, I'm pretty sure, the main ones that I ordered. She did have some seed dahlias that I ordered too, I'll share with you guys. But this is a variety called Golden Hour, which I love to think of the flower season in color palettes. There are certain color palettes I am drawn to. I love those corals, those bronzes, the pastels. I really kind of steer clear of like bright colors, like bright pinks, bright purples. That's not typically something I gravitate to. It's not really a color I like working with. So I find that I like to think I'm kind of open-minded, and then when the season comes, I realize that I stick pretty true to what I like. And so these Golden Hour zinnias are just different variations and colors of this beautiful pastel orange and yellow, and they just look stunning. So I knew I wanted to give them a try. The plants look super healthy. I'm just now starting to harvest a few off of them, and so you can see what they look like. They look fantastic. So next up behind me, we have got two different varieties, a Zinderella, which, you guys, this flower brings me so much joy that, I don't know, like if I could only grow one zinnia, it might be the Zinderella. It's so much fun. It's got texture, it's spunky, it's whimsical, it's just so stinking cool. Even though I don't have a ton in bloom, I'm gonna pull some old footage from, I'll say old footage, I'm gonna pull footage from when I harvested last week and show you guys, because they are just so, so stellar. And then another one is Precious Metals, which is also a Floret original. So these are all trials. These are new varieties I haven't grown before. You guys know I'm not typically crazy about that when I'm growing vegetables. But because I'm trying to learn some of these flowers, learn how they perform, it's kind of just like the name of the game, if you will. I will say though, these are branching beautifully. They've got great color. We are on an overhead sprinkler out here, so everything's looking really well. So I can't really tell you as far as, you know, if they're as productive as some of the other ones I've grown in the past, because I don't know, this is my first year, but I'll definitely give you guys an update. But let's take a look at some of these behind me. And then our last two beds I did save for our tried and true. So for several years I've been growing the Queenie Limes, or the Queenie formula mix from Johnny Seeds. It's a mix of all of the Queenies. So there are, gosh, there's a Queenie Red, Queenie Lime, Queenie Blush, Queenie Orange. There's so many of them you can buy, and they're all really pretty. Or you can buy the mix, and it's kind of all of them, which I preferred to do this year. It was actually a lot cheaper to do it that way. And these are just kind of all-stars. They perform really well because there are different yellows and peaches and kind of different, I say reds, but more not the type of red you're thinking about. I'll show you in a minute. So I really like this variety because it adds a lot of versatility into an arrangement. Instead of growing multiple varieties, I can just buy the mix, sow it all. And yeah, they do really well. They perform well. You guys can see they look really beautiful too. All right, so this right here is the front half of this new growing space that we've added this year. So again, we've got our zinnias, our basil, our celosia. We will do probably 2 or more successions of this to ensure we have enough blooms to last us through at least the fall. So we're doing flower subscriptions this year. We are doing a flower stand this year. We've got on-farm workshops. We're going to be doing some fun U-picks, and then also potentially still supplying wholesalers with some of these. We're not 100% sure on that, but we want to make sure that we have plenty enough blooms throughout the season because we are growing in Central Arkansas. We have a pretty long growing season, so we don't really experience our first frost until well into November. So I am hopeful we can kind of test the limits and really grow a lot and do multiple successions. But you guys can see it looks lush, it looks beautiful. I am super hopeful that it's going to be so productive. And so this is why we've been a little MIA lately, right? We've been working so hard on creating these spaces. You know, I thought at the beginning of the season, pre-pregnancy, that this is going to be no big deal. Then I found out I was pregnant with our sweet little baby boy coming in July. And I still thought, oh, this is no big deal. We got this. After a lot of back-breaking work of just wheelbarrowing wood chips, building out rows, I realized it's a little more work than I thought, but it's so worth it. So here we have our second half of the grid. We built out these nice walkways because, again, our original plan was to just keep succession sowing sunflowers in all these spaces. So even though we kind of pivoted our plan a little bit, I really like having the walkways and kind of a border. We've got pallets of center blocks where we will be building a cheaper version of a retaining wall, because you can see it is sloped, so we deal with a lot of runoff of soil, which can cause a lot of erosion, things like that. So we're just trying to be mindful of that. But fun fact, I actually started growing sunflowers here the summer before we moved in. So I'm sure so many of you guys know, but if not, we had the privilege of buying our farm from some of our best friends, Jessica and Jeremiah. They own Roots and Refuge Farm. They now have a beautiful farm and business in South Carolina, but before then, they lived right here. I know those of you who've been following their journey for years, following us buying the farm, this has been quite a transition, seeing just how different we've made this space. But they gave us the opportunity to come and actually start growing sunflowers on our property the summer before we bought it. So that was nice because we were able to just kind of see how it would do here, work out some of those kinks. And so we had a very small section right back here that we grew sunflowers the summer before we moved in, and just had a lot of success with it. Sunflowers are really easy to grow. We're growing a variety called a Pro Cut Orange Excel. We'll grow that all throughout the summer, and then probably later in the season we'll move to like a Pro Cut Plum, some of those deeper maroon colors. Again, all of the sunflowers we're growing though are Pro Cuts. They're Pro Cut singles, so what that means is they're not going to branch and put off multiple heads. You're not going to get multiple harvests off of them. We are literally letting them produce one bloom, and we are cutting them, which for some people that might be hard, but for us as a for-profit farm, they're much more efficient. They go for a higher price point in the market, so that's why we grow them. I will say we steer clear of any sort of white sunflower. There was a season where we grew the White Light and the White Night, which they were beautiful. They were so beautiful, but we dealt with a lot of pest issues on the petals themselves. So if we have grasshopper damage or even beetle damage on the leaves, we're removing all but the top two leaves anyway, so that's really not that big of a deal. But once the bugs start really interfering with the petals, we can no longer sell those, whether that's wholesale or retail. So it really starts to affect your bloom quality. So we decided not to grow those anymore. So even just in these small grids behind us, we are able to crank out so many sunflowers. We grow them in succession. We plant them out every single week. And what we'll do is we'll go through and we'll plant out this entire first grid, and then we'll move on to our second grid. So we're harvesting we're cutting the stems at about 18 to 24 inches long. And then we're leaving the rest of that stalk in the ground to kind of decompose. Sunflowers have a very, very deep root system. So if we were to rip all those roots up, one, it's going to just disturb the quality of the soil. It's going to really start just leaching out all those nutrients we want to keep in the soil. And it's just really a waste of soil. So we let them decompose, and then what we'll do is we'll go in between the lines that we, sowed these, and we'll sow the next one. And that's kind of the succession that we have ourselves on here. All right, so I just shared with you guys this beautiful new addition behind me. Now I'm going to share with you the second new addition that we added to the farm this season. So this space behind me is actually dual purpose, which is great. This was kind of one of those spaces that we knew had the opportunity to be profit generating and had an opportunity to be something just cooler than what we were using it for. And so we have worked on, and when I say we, my sweet husband Nathan did this fun little project while I was out of town at a conference last fall. But he turned this area into a little seating area. As you can see, we have fire pits out here. We've got our bare bones, like a little cowboy grill. And then we have this section over here. So the mural that you see here, this was existing for beehives. We've got a hive that's just further over here. And so what we're actually gonna do is we're going to take a chainsaw, we're gonna cut these down. We're gonna have a table built and some shelves, and we have a big massive sunshade that's gonna go over this entire mulched area that you see. And we do have a big tree which provides some good amount of shade. So putting beds in this space wouldn't make sense for the things I would need to grow that are, you know, needing those full 6 to 8, even more hours of sun a day. So we thought, how do we use this in a great way? And so once we harvest flowers for the day, we'll be able to bring them over here and make our arrangements. But then one better, which I love, we are having some tables made, and we will kind of line them up here. That way when we have our workshops, you'll be able to harvest, come to your tables. I will be able to teach you from the mural and just have a good working space. And then also we'll set up, you know, drinks, refreshments, charcuterie, sourdough, and then that'll be kind of your gathering place where we will utilize that. So this whole area, really the idea of it was to prepare arrangements and also for the purpose of workshops. But we did decide to go ahead and add these new beds on the right side of this area that does get that full sun we were talking about. So originally this was going to be for filler flowers. So the area I just showed you, all of that was going to be over here. So what I realized real quickly was that I had too many dahlias and not enough space. So I had to kind of pivot my plan. Again, much like any gardener, your first plan doesn't always go as planned. And so we kind of had to pivot. So these were our original dahlias that we have been trialing for the last, this will be the 3rd year we're trialing them. We will be selling these tubers come this spring. So excited about that. So that's what we have here. We have got our dahlia tubers that we saved. We pre-sprouted all of these in our seed starting greenhouse. There are so many different varieties, and once they come into bloom, I will share them with you. Right now, I'm not sure it's beneficial to go through all the different varieties. You can't actually see what they look like. So we just got these in the ground about a week and a half ago. They're growing great, but we're just not, you know, putting on any blooms yet. I also went through and pinched all of these. So that's what's in these 3 beds here. And we will build out a few more beds probably later in the fall, maybe add 2 or 3 more beds. And this will also be for dahlia production moving forward into next season. Now I do have this one bed here up front, which is different. So I had some extra floret seeds and those are an investment. So I put the extra celosia seed in the back, and then the front half is her petite floret dahlias. So these are seed dahlias. They're just these small little petite, I would consider them a filler, definitely not a focal flower. Just wanted to kind of see. I've grown dahlia from seed one time about 4 years ago, and so I just wanted to kind of see how that process was. So we have this here again on that Hortanova netting, which is what we had for our zinnias, our basil, our celosia. But then moving forward for our dahlias, we'll actually put T-post, and we'll do kind of a corral method with string, and that's going to work a lot better for us to kind of keep our dahlias situated. So these are looking honestly great. So this was our second new addition to the farm this season. So thankful for really just everyone on our team. You know, it's one thing being the dreamer and the creative. It's another thing having those people who come alongside you and support that dream and help you with a lot of the manual work and labor. And I'm so thankful for my husband, who not only supports the dream, supports the dream, knowing the amount of work that comes with that dream. And I think he knew that I kind of had high expectations this year, but he was not going to be the one to burst my bubble. And he was just like, all right, let's buckle down, let's do it. And he has been working so hard getting these spaces ready for us this year. And it's a lot. When you look at the back part of our farm, you just kind of like go, whoa, so much has changed. And a big part of that's because of him. So super thankful, just really honored to be able to share it with you guys too. You've seen the transformation for some of you who've been following us for years. Maybe some of you guys have been following us since, you know, our very first little hobby farm, and you've seen the whole transition. And just what a joy, right? To see what some wild dreams, some hard work will lend you. Oh my God. I went to set my phone down. There's a massive snake. My heart right now, Lord have mercy. Fun fact about Jill. One you didn't know you were gonna get this in the vlog today. I'm terrified of mice, like next level terrified of mice. And as good as I know that they are, I am also terrified of snakes. I will not kill a snake. I will call for reinforcements, but I went to go put my phone down so that I could move my tripod. You guys, it was looking straight at me. Now it has hidden. It's a black snake, so hopefully a king snake. But it is now hidden in this black landscape fabric. All right, the show must go on. I'm gonna try so hard to pay attention to you guys, but if you keep seeing me like glancing over, just know I am trying to protect myself. Bless it. All right, so moving on. The third new growing space we created here on the farm this year was our dried flower area. So this area behind me is absolutely stunning. Nathan put me this beautiful archway in, which I have got pansies and snap peas. Just beautiful. So I told him I wanted an area for dried flowers. And he said, babe, if you'll just leave this with me, I really have a plan and a vision for this. So as the creative, it's not often that Nathan comes to me with like, hey babe, I've got creative vision for this space. So when he did come to me with this, I said, you know what? It's in your hands. You do what you want to do. So this is beside our food tunnel, which is a 20 by 50 foot food tunnel. I'll be doing an entire garden tour, veggie specific, next week, so stay tuned for that. This is just kind of about our new growing spaces we added on this year. And so we wanted to originally do the entire length of this in dried flowers, but this had not really been utilized. So last year I threw some compost down, I grew some winter squashes in it, and it did well, but it was a very wild method, right? Not really what I teach either. And so it was just like, oh, there's space, I need space, I'll throw it in here. But I knew this was a decent amount that if nurtured, we could really utilize into growing space for our family and for our business. So that's what we decided to do. But we knew that to get this whole area prepped, which we were gonna go past the greenhouse, so we're looking at like 60-65 feet of growing space. It was a lot to take on. So we have got a silage tarp on the back part of this. We will just leave that tarped all summer, and this fall we'll work on prepping it. Now, in our favor, the native soil here was actually great, because I talked about, even though we've lived here for several years, we bought this from our friends. They actually ran their meat birds over here. So it had good, rich soil. It just needed to be added to. It needed to have a little bit of structure. And so that's what we decided to do. We've really reconfigured a lot. There was a kids garden here that we took down. So we repurposed a lot of the things. These planter boxes came from that kid garden. We took the platform of that and we used for our flower stand. So we've been super creative to recycle some of the things that didn't make sense for us. We have been able to recycle and repurpose a lot of that. So let me show you these beautiful planter boxes that we recycled. So we decided to mulch the walkways because we had access to wood chips, which has been such a blessing. So we just kind of created these borders and these grids. The dried flowers are literally just something we're growing now to use for winter projects. We're thinking about doing a winter subscription. We're wanting to offer different things on the website, different workshops this winter. So the purpose of this was just to have as dried flowers that we would harvest now and do something with in the winter time. So Nathan created me these 2 outside beds, and they have straw flower in them. They're already starting to bloom. They're so beautiful. And then the middle grid here is status. And so we'll continue to do that. So we'll kind of continue this method, right? We'll have these bigger grids in the center, and then we'll have these longer, shorter rows that go down. And we'll probably change out which dried flowers we're growing seasonally. Right now, I've just really wanted to grow the straw flowers. I'm growing the silver rose. I'm growing the apricot peach mix, the king red, and I think it's like a vintage rose. So just trying to think of those things. Oh, and a giant yellow. So not quite sure what we're going to do with the yellow. It's very bright, very in your face. But I've never successfully grown straw flowers. So that was one of those things I just personally wanted to try to grow it again. Because you can use it in fresh arrangements or dried. It is a cut and come again. We have no netting on any of this because if you actually plant these dense enough, they can kind of support each other and act as their own trellising system, which was also nice. So we do have all of this right now on an overhead sprinkler that is just on a T-post hooked up onto the fence. I have not dealt with any sort of disease, any issues with that. So that's honestly probably what we'll continue to do. All right, and then I wanted to share with you guys the variety of status that I am growing. These are all new to me. Last year I grew the Seeker White, and I still have boxes and boxes of it, and while it was so productive, I was just missing a little color in my life. And so this year I thought, let's add some new varieties. Let's do something fun, a little spunky. Still staying in that creams, pastels, the things that I really appreciate. So all these seeds came from Johnny Seeds. It's primarily where I'm buying most of my seeds. I can buy in bulk, which is nice. Like with the straw flower, I bought 1 million. Lord knows it's going to take me forever to go through 1 million seeds, but it was so much cheaper versus, 10 or 15 or even, 25 seeds isn't quite enough for what I need in a season. So that's why I prefer to buy from them. But the status varieties I'm growing is one called Forever Happy. It's this first row right here. And I mean, we're already starting to, we're going to be harvesting status before we know it. We have got a pastel mix, which is again going with those color palettes I love. And then we have an apricot beauty. Now I did put these in a little bit later, and then it goes back in that same succession there. So Forever Happy, pastel mix, and an apricot beauty. And you guys can see here the little status patch is looking lovely. Now, while I wish I could tell you I was showing you the last and final new updated growing space on the farm, if we are not anything, we are ambitious here at Whispering Willow. So this is not our last new growing space. There's one more space to show you guys. We actually started this project last season, and my goodness was it an undertaking, but we put up a 20 by 68 foot flower tunnel from Bootstrap Farmer. Absolutely love it. It's a Gothic. We had to kind of reshift our plans, which I'll talk to you guys about in a minute. We're always reshifting expectations, especially when you're adding in so many spaces. I will say, if you're a beginner, I do not recommend doing all this at once. You're going to get very overwhelmed. Even as someone who's been doing this for a long time, I still got overwhelmed. I still had moments of like, oh, okay, this is a lot. So I really recommend start small, gradually do it. We had a few factors this year into play, like welcoming a new little one. There were a lot of different things I was thinking through when I was planning out adding all these new spaces, but don't overwhelm yourself. Start somewhere, start small, stay small, totally fine. But I am excited to share with you guys the flower tunnel. I'll put links to everything as well down in the description below. We got the shade cloths on this week, which has helped a ton. But let's go take a look at our last and final new updated growing space in this garden tour, and let me share with you guys what I'm growing. All right, so now we have our flower tunnel. So I feel like I just want to set the scene for you guys. I feel like I talk about this a lot, but there are a lot of challenges when you're farmers and gardeners and homesteaders. One of them is creating new spaces, growing in virgin land, right? Virgin soil, creating spaces from scratch. It's no joke. And so I knew with this tunnel, we had to bring in soil. The first round of soil we got was not up to my quality standards. So we tried to remove a lot of it. We tried to source out better soil. We tried to compost and add amendments. But I knew, I just kind of had a gut feeling early in the season that this tunnel was not going to produce what it needed to produce. And in fact, I had one of my friends come over and was consulting me, and his recommendation was not to grow in it at all, was just to put soil, amend and manage weeds, and then grow in it next year, because it is so hard just starting with new ground and new soil. And so I want to encourage you, if you're starting your gardens for the first time, whether that's vegetables or flowers, and you just kind of have a stinky year, you don't harvest a lot, you don't get a lot of blooms, don't be encouraged. That's very, very common and very natural. You know, it takes years of adding nutrients and building up fertility and soil quality and soil health. That does not happen overnight. And we can do all the things, right? We can try to source out the best soil. We can try to add amendments, but there's certainly still going to be obstacles. And so that is certainly what we are facing here in our flower tunnel. So I will say, that kind of shifted. When I realized that I needed to shift my plans for this tunnel this year. So we made a big tuber investment. We bought hundreds of tubers from various different farmers around the world. And the plan was to originally grow them in here. And then I started not feeling good about that when I started seeing the quality of the soil. I started just seeing some of the other obstacles, some of the things we wanted to have done, but we didn't. We wanted to have electricity ran so that we would have vents. That didn't get done. We ended up having to take off our insect netting to allow better airflow. We were dealing with a lot of obstacles. And because it's so humid in here and we haven't figured out or had the time or the resources to fix some of those obstacles, it's starting to have a trickle effect, right? There's so many benefits to growing in a high tunnel, but you really have to be used to that environment. And with a Gothic tunnel, if you don't have those vents to move airflow gets trapped. And so we improvised. So I decided the tubers that we invested in new this year, we're gonna go in the raised bed garden. We've got 3 48-foot long beds in there. I could grow 154 tubers in there, and that soil had been there for years. It's been amended for years, nurtured for years. There's earthworms, there's bugs, there's beneficial nematodes. There is just so much health and vitality in that soil that I decided to pivot and do that. And I'm so glad I did. So out here, I've got in my one bed, my extra stock of my dahlias. So this was just stock I had extra in that we're just trying to build up tuber production. So I might never sell a bloom on this, and that's totally fine. These are just extras, which because of the different environment we're growing in, you might notice these little white spots. I'll try to get some videos and show you guys. When we brought in this mulch, I'm not sure if it was this batch of mulch particularly, or maybe the different environment being super humid, we're having this alien-like fungus that is spreading rapidly. So I am having to pull out plants almost every single day. I recommend, if you have any sort of disease or fungus that's not treatable, immediately pull it out, because it is going to continue to spread. I'm pulling out plants every single day and it's still spreading. So we are trying to find something that is in compliance with our certification to see if we can't treat the issue organically. But man, it's a bummer. This bed, I actually planted my Lisianthus in, so I am going to share with you guys what varieties. They are getting this fungus and disease as well, so I'm pulling those out as fast as I'm seeing it, but I am hopeful we will still yield some sort of harvest. So let's walk through these. I bought these as plugs from Farmer Bailey. I put them in early in the spring. Very, very slow growing, but now that they're kind of picking up, they're starting to pick up. All right, so I'm pretty sure I got 3 different varieties. The first variety is a Cornelli 2 Light Pink. That is this first one that you're seeing here. This has probably been the slowest growing one. The second variety I have here is called Arena 3 Apricot. You guys can see that here. Again, pretty slow growing as well. I mean, none of these have bloomed at all. And down here at the bottom, we have a Sabrina 1 Mango. So this is actually starting to get to where they look like they're going to bloom. We'll see. We'll see how they do. I'm hoping I just get something out of them before you guys can see the fungus here just starts to take it over. All right, and then in this third bed behind me, I had planted this bed before the fungus had started to show up. So again, I am dealing with absolutely no issues in here whatsoever. And so the third bed I planted with extra straw flower, status, and scabiosa that I had started that I didn't have room for. And then the plan was all my dahlia cuttings, did a video on that. My dahlia cuttings, eucalyptus, and extras were gonna go in this bed, the last bed. I've completely halted growing in here because until I can figure out this problem, it doesn't make sense because I'm just gonna have to keep pulling out plants. So there's a little flower tunnel update, super unfortunate. I feel like it could be a combination of contaminated wood chips. I feel like it could be something with our water. Nathan has bought a lot of different filtration systems to put on. We have a lot of copper and iron. I don't know if that being mixed with the humidity in here. There are so many different things we're just trying to rule out and see. But right now I've kind of halted growing anything in here, and we're starting to just try to test on how to remove this as efficiently as possible. So fingers crossed we will yield something from here. If we can get this under control, I will probably do a round of zinnias in here. Once the lisianthus come out, I'll put something else in here, but right now it just doesn't really make a lot of sense for me to move forward doing that when I have a fungal issue that we're just trying to figure out what exactly it is. And that, my friends, is a wrap on our first garden tour of our new updated spaces on the farm. Officially broke a sweat. It's humid as all get out here. But what a joy, what a privilege to be able to share with you guys. I can't wait for even just in a few short weeks, a month, 2 months, to do another little garden tour update, show you guys all of these beautiful flowers in full bloom, what they look like. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I'll talk to you soon. Also, friendly reminder, today is the last day to secure your seats to the Herbal First Aid Virtual Workshop my friend Kaylee over at the Homestead and myself are hosting Sunday, May 26th from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We have covered all of the bases, you guys. We finalized our presentation. It is over 100 pages long. We know this is going to be so valuable for you, but you have until midnight tonight to secure your spot. So if you would like to do so, check out the link in the description below.